Well, I hope you're having a great Saturday. And here in Riverside, it's 104, but that's okay. It's going up to 108 on Monday. So we'll get back to normal soon. So, yeah, it's a little warm out there this week. Okay, we're going to have some fun today. Well, we're going to do some serious work, of course, but at the end, I saw this stat and I thought it'd be fun to talk about. At the end, we'll talk about what kind of a net worth do you need to have in order to be in the top 1% or even the top 10%, 5%. We'll look at a few of those stats at the end. I think it'll be kind of fun. Okay, Elon has had a conversation with the future POTUS. Of course, I'm talking about the past POTUS, who I have some hopes will be the future POTUS, Donald Trump. And they've had this conversation about setting up a government efficiency department. What kind of a concept would that be? It's an oxymoronic statement, but who knows? Maybe such a thing could be done. I'd much rather have Elon be involved in something more like establishing the new grid for the United States based on distributive platform, as opposed to the centralized platform we have now. I'd much rather have him, definitely have him talking to him about AI regulation and what to do about the future of AI and robotics, but maybe he'd have time to do all three. So government efficiency, huh? Let me know in the comments below whether you think Elon has that much brain power. That would be something else. Well, hey, listen, Trump got the Abraham Accords last time, so miracles can happen. All right. Elon repeats that other automakers are selling cars far below their cost. Especially, we're talking about the BEVs, and that's hurting Tesla's margin. But he says, look, that can't last forever. So there's a little hint of what he thinks is going to be coming up later. I'll be talking a little bit more about that either tomorrow or on Monday with Brian White. I want to talk to you. Think about this. What happens to the price of vehicles when robotaxis are possible? What happens to the raw cost? What are people, anyway, we'll talk about that. I'm not sure. Either tomorrow in my own show, or I will talk about it with Brian. We'll see which way I go. All right. This is from Whole Mars blog. He says, thank you, Elon Musk, for all you've done to improve my life. Tesla, FSD, X have completely changed my life for the better. Tesla shareholders have become wealthy from your blood, sweat, and tears. We can't thank you enough. I'd say that's fair. I think that's a good idea. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Whole Mars blog, for thanking Elon for us. Farzad started a debate today on whether Elon is hurting the brand with his political activity. So then Elon says to that entire thread, he says, look, that guy doesn't get it. I would prefer to have no involvement in politics at all. However, he says in all caps, there is no company success unless civilization itself continues to progress. The insane shift by the left away from a meritocracy and away from personal liberties, in other words, censorship of free speech under the guise of hate speech, in parentheses, will be the end of civilization as we know it. And we know that at the very top of Elon's list of his missions in life is to make sure that human civilization continues on Earth and continues to thrive. And he's working so hard to get, ways to make that happen, as well as an escape hatch up on Mars in case it doesn't. Then we got James Catt. He goes as Tesla Fan Metal, MTL, if you want to find him on X. He says, you know what, Elon, this is just what you tell yourself to rationalize failing your fiduciary duty to Tesla shareholders so that you can have the liberty to rant on X. Now, sometimes James Catt is being humorous, but I'm not sure he is in this case. Anyway, I responded to him. I said, look, James, I respect your analysis, and I quote you often on my video channel. However, Elon knows, and you should know, that his politics won't matter a bit once FSD is solved and robotaxis and Optimus hit the market. Your wealth, your future concerns will be over once those two things happen, and Elon's politics won't have had a whit to do with it. Not a jot or a tittle to do with it. All right. Nick Cruz Patane, and that he goes, that's his, if you spell it out, NICCRUZ PATANE is how he is on X. It says the Model 3 performance does 0 to 60 in 2.86 seconds and a quarter mile in 10.74 seconds, going 126.97 miles an hour on an unrepaired surface. And Elon Musk says the Model 3 performance is fire. All right, Figure AI put out a video teaser today for their Gen 2 bot. And some interesting features, and I think Scott and I will be talking about that later. Not sure exactly whether we'll wait for Wednesday on that or do it sooner, but Scott did weigh in on the fact that he could kind of tell what the battery pack looked like, and it was what do you want to call it? You couldn't take it in and out. It wasn't exchangeable. So that was kind of interesting. He said the hand also, I say that the hand does not appear to be anything near as sophisticated as the new Tesla hand, as the actuators are still in the palm. And of course, Tesla has made the move to put the actuators like humans into the arm. There was other aspects of even the teaser that you could tell that were not human-like. It was efforts, I guess, by Brett Adcock to outdo God in how he is thinking that a humanoid bot should operate compared to actually humans, whereas Elon seems to be going more and more copying God, as he talks about even the fingers being different links make a difference in terms of dexterity and whatnot. He even talked about the pinky finger being so key in dexterity and usefulness. And I can tell you, maybe you've heard me tell the story before, I decided a couple of years ago I wanted to finally learn how to play oboe. And after working on it for a while and some other things that came up, I realized that the biggest problem with an oboe is that little pinky on your left hand, which is, you would think is like the worst, thing on your body, it has to do a lot of things. It's got a lot of activity and it's got to move really fast. And being ancient of days and having a little arthritis in that pinky and not having nearly the coordination I did, say, when I was in my teens or 20s, I gave up my efforts to become, symphony level on the oboe, or even bedroom level. Okay, so this is Randy Kirk, by the way. If you haven't hit the like button, hit that, subscribe, notify. Why do you want to hit notify? Because tomorrow, you know what tomorrow night is. Tomorrow night we have Monday morning. Do you think there's going to be anything to talk about in terms of expectations for the stock market coming up this week? Yeah, we have a few things to talk about. Not like last week, but it's the kind of, what would you call it? It's the aftermath of the implosion. How's that? All right. So I did watch the full all-in podcast yesterday. Basically, here's a couple of things that came out of that. Chamath says we're already in recession. Then Sachs says, well, numerically, in some regards, we don't have a recessionary GDP negative number. So he thinks that the numbers aren't right. So he thinks we're in recession also. And then he points out that Biden is looking for 30% of GDP next year, just the federal government by themselves, to spend 30% of GDP. That is higher by almost 50% than it has historically been or ever been. I think maybe the highest number has been around 21, 22%. Historically, you figure when it gets over 21%, way too big, needs to be maybe down closer to 19%. So I thought that was that was not good. Chamath says that the AI movement is massively deflationary. I think Elon would agree. I think Cathie would agree. Everybody agrees that that's true. The question is when. I think we're looking at the end of next year before we begin to see some significant moves in that way. In other words, enough apps and programs and things to where it's starting to have you can actually see it on balance sheets and actually see it in the economy. But once it happens, it's going to be, it'll accelerate rapidly. And by the end of 2026 into 2027, robotaxis and Optimus will probably have a bigger impact on that kind in terms of productivity numbers than the rest of AI combined, because it's embodied. Okay, that's the key, is embodied. Okay, Warren Buffett has sold half of his Apple stock, and he currently has a record cash hoard. That would say that he's either incapable, just cannot find a single deal, and there has been reporting that he's just, like looking around and going, no, nothing that I see out there fits my formula. Or it could be that he's just putting together a nice big cash hoard for when the market retreats to the levels that Larry and I talked about earlier today. Both of us agreeing that we will see a 20%, a total of a 20. Right now, we've already seen a 5% pullback on the S&P and the Dow. We've seen a 10% pullback on the NASDAQ, and both of us agree we're going to go down and to a total of 20% on S&P and Dow and 30% on the NASDAQ. And that'll probably happen fairly rapidly. And then we'll start climbing back out of that. And by the end of the year, I think we'll be at all-time highs by the end of the year, or higher than we were at the previous all-time highs a couple of weeks ago. Well, last week, like a week ago. Anyway, and in that same conversation about Apple, I did contemplate what happens if Apple's next phone doesn't go like really, everybody's expecting it to do really well because of the AI features, and Apple certainly is expecting, and the investors are thinking it's going to do well. The stock has been doing pretty good. What happens if, because of the recession, it doesn't get the kick that everybody's expecting? Apple could really take a big tumble on that. All right. 𝐒𝐭𝐲 letter breaking: the Russell 2000 index outperformed the NASDAQ 100 by 12.1% in the month of July. That's the most since the 2000 dot-com bubble busted. He said busted. Anyway, in July, the NASDAQ 100 lost 1.6, while the Russell 2000 rallied by 10.5. I'm curious to know what happened on Thursday and Friday. I didn't look it up. Maybe you could put it in the comments below. If you add Thursday and Friday, what was the final result of July plus Thursday and Friday? Not sure. As a result, the NASDAQ 100 to Russell 2000 ratio has declined from a record 9.6 to only 8.4 now. However, the ratio is still higher than during the 2000 dot-com bubble. Again, I don't know why he's bringing up the dot-com bubble. It's irrelevant. Now, is it possible that NVIDIA, everybody keeps saying that there's no limit to how many GPUs they're going to be able to sell? I don't think that's true. Everybody says that there's no limit to how many GPUs we're going to need in order to get to AGI, or even after AGI to keep on doing it. I don't think that's true. I just doesn't make sense to me. I'm not a scientist, and I certainly I respect all the people I've had on this channel telling me, no, it's unlimited. There's no way that we'll ever have enough compute. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Maybe not, but maybe we'll have enough compute for 5 years. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Anyway, and then, you've got the issue of whether we get a return on investment on that massive spend that we've already got going on. These are two big issues. And so if I was going to give 𝐒𝐭𝐲 a break here on his analysis, I would say those two things are something to pay attention to. Anyway, in other words, either small caps are undervalued still, or large tech stocks are overvalued. I would say that both of those things could be true at the same time, but that it's more about the interest rates, and as those come down, we will continue to see this move. And he expects the gap to close in the coming months. This is from MoneyWise. Recent data from Kiplinger suggests to enter into the top 2% of U.S. households, you need a net worth of, you ready? Are you in the top 2%? You think you're in the top 2%? What is the household net worth necessary to get there? Write it down. Okay, here we go. Takes $2.7 million of household net worth, and you'll be in the top 2%. All right, so what about a more reasonable goal. Maybe you're not quite in that level yet, but you will be in 2026 because of your Tesla holdings. That is not investment advice. So what about top 5%? Well, that's only going to take 1.17 million of net worth, and you could be in the top 5%. And then if you want to be in the top 10%, not bad, huh? That would give you still an A minus. You would only need to be at 970. So not a lot of difference between top 5 and top 10. It only drops from 1.17 to 970,000. But if you want to get into the top 1%, okay, ready? Write it down. Come on, put your number down. What kind of a net worth do you have to be in that top 1%? I think you'll be surprised at how low it is, actually. Are you ready? Got it written down now? That would be 11.6 million. It isn't a crazy number today in today's world. 11.6 million. I mean, I'm not there, but it's not so far out of reach. Anyway, well, maybe based on my age. All right, let's take a quick look at the I forgot to grab it here. I just want to look at a couple of the financial pieces right now. We're not going to go through the whole thing. I just wanted to take a quick look because we are, in this wacky place, and I just wanted a quick analysis before we get into next week. What's wrong with my phone? Of course, it's not going to, there we go. All right. So where we are on the bonds, we are now sitting at 3.8 on the 10-year. Okay, 3.8 on the 10-year. And I believe we ended up with only a 10 basis point 2-year, 3.8 and 3.88. So we're only looking at 8 basis points as of right now, as we go into next week, 8 basis points on that inversion. I think we'll be uninverting next week. What do you think? I think we're going to uninvert next week. Okay, then also of quite big interest this last week was oil, which is now sitting at $74 for Texas Intermediate and $76.81 for Brent. It was at 85 on Brent just a week, 10 days ago, whatever. I don't know. I don't remember exactly. We got natural gas under $2. We have gold at 24.86, very close to all-time highs. Copper and silver, not that interesting. The dollar, of course, they have the Japanese yen thing. So the dollar down of the last couple of days against the yen because the Japanese bank, as we noted in Larry and my conversation earlier today, where we're talking about Cathie, that we have this unwinding taking place of the Japanese yen carry thing. I forget what it's called. Okay, then we have, there's a name. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Okay, crypto down another 2,000. Of course, this is exactly right now because Bitcoin is traded 24/7. It is now at 60,669. So it's very, very close to going back into the fives, into the 50,000s. Then on the futures, we're looking at, there's no futures yet. Of course, that won't be till tomorrow night, but we ended up on the Dow at 39.7, S&P at 53.58, and the NASDAQ at 18.513, with big down days on both Thursday and Friday. So it's going to be an interesting week next week, but I'll tell you way more about that tomorrow night on the Monday morning show. Don't miss it. Now, what you also don't want to miss, wow, earlier today, seriously, Cern Basher, he hit it out of the park as always does, but this was a really good one. I'm going to put that card up there. And then Larry Goldberg and I, we talked about what? We talked about the Cathie Wood Report, which typically is one of the best programs. Well, I consider it to be the most important program of the month by a lot. I still consider that to be true. If you haven't watched it yet already, I'll put the card up here. But this is my personal opinion. If you don't watch anything else the entire month, you should watch that show. That's just my opinion. Okay. So that card will be up there also. And then one of the things you could do that would be so kind would be to participate in the Patreon thing. Just go down to the description, hit the little, just click on it, go over to Patreon and put some tips in the tip jar. Okay. It's been great talking to you.